Good evening, everyone. Can folks hear me? Great. All right. So we've got all 5 members here today. Folks are online, so we do have a quorum. We can conduct our business. Still pulling up the agenda. So I'll call this November 4th meeting of the Rules and Resolutions Committee and Ethics Board to order. Agenda item number 2, proof of notification. I know I sent it out, but was it posted to the bulletin board? Okay, great. Thank you. Agenda item number 3, agenda approval. So we've got a 13-point agenda. Okay, motion by Cosgrove.
A second.
Second by Severson. A little bit meaty today. We got quite a few topics here, so we'll see what we get through. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Okay, that motion carries. So we have an agenda approved. Previous meeting minutes. For a motion to approve those.
Move to approve.
Motion by Severson.
I'll second.
Second by Luck. Any discussion on those? Those in favor, please say aye.
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 Say no. All right, that motion carries. Agenda item number 5, 75th anniversary of, and I don't know how to say this. Saltweedle? Said that right? Okay. 75th anniversary of Saltweedle store. So, Mr. Seep, not sure if you can hear me. I haven't heard your voice yet.
Yes, I'm here.
Oh, great. Okay. So I just drafted up a resolution based on a couple of news articles I could find in the Observer, and then there was a TV station that covered this as well. Did you have any suggestions for changes since this is the area you represent?
I think it's very nice. I would like to have the privilege of offering the motion to approve.
Okay. Motion by Seep. Second by Cosgrove. Does anyone else have any suggested changes to the resolution here? Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Okay, that motion carries unanimously. Agenda item number 6, Native American Heritage Month. I did just a little bit of research on this and pulled down some educational maps, information from the Census Bureau. I always hear about the Ho-Chunk Nation because I think they give us some funding for County Highway Y down the south part of the county. So that's why I kind of pulled up some information on them. Like they have about 8 out of the 211 people who identify as Native American who live here in Richland County, 8 people enrolled in the Ho-Chunk Nation. Like there's about 10 different recognized tribes, or I'm not sure if I'm using the right terminology, but anyone have any comments on this resolution? Might be the last as far as diversity goes. We've done African American, women, LGBT. We did elected municipal elected officials serving 20 years or more, emergency service workers, healthcare professionals, Hispanic Americans, Native Americans, quite a few. I don't know if folks have other ideas for other ones, but this I think is about the last of them that I can think of, although there's always other ideas and open to those. We've done local businesses, small businesses. So I'm just looking for a motion to approve if folks are okay with this.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, motion by Luck. Second by Cosgrove. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Okay, that motion carries. Agenda item number 7, ethics ordinance. So the long running thing, we've had it on the agenda 3 times now. We skipped it last time, so I put it a little bit earlier this time so we could at least address it. If we want to make some changes to our ordinance or recommend changes to our ordinance to the county board, I took Mr. Seep's advice. I think there was a need for, I think as he put it one time, a little more homework to be done because we were wandering in the woods, was I think his exact quote or something pretty close to that. So what I did is I laid out 9 potential changes that we could recommend as a committee to our ethics ordinance. We don't have to make any of these, but I just laid them out to kind of give choices, hear opinions from folks about, do we need changes? And if so, do we want these changes? Maybe there's other ones. Our ethics ordinance, I think it was attachment, I'll just skip ahead just a little bit. At the end, attachment D was ordinances from Crawford, Iowa, and Sauk counties. And they all had they were very different ordinances from ours. I don't know what it was. At some point they were redoing ordinances and we had a completely different one. So there's the handbook guidance that's attached. There's the Wisconsin state statute that's attached on ethics ordinances. I think one question that had come up from folks was, well, something about state law. State law already requires us to follow certain ethics as elected officials, like as county board members. Why do we need an ethics ordinance that applies to us? Our ethics ordinance currently only applies to employees that are not elected. So the state statute gives us the ability to add things on if we choose to do so. That state law still applies to us, but they allow us to basically up our game in our ethics ordinance if we choose to do that. So there's a minimum standard and then we can add more.
Mr. Chair?
Yep, go ahead.
I mean, I think our current ethics ordinance definitely needs some clarification. And so I am personally in favor of adding all of these things. I mean, I think anytime we can just spell it out so that there's absolutely no question as to what is and isn't okay for us and any of the employees of the county, I think we should do it. I mean, let's be transparent. Let's lay it all out there. And I personally don't see any reason why we wouldn't want to include any of these items in here. So I guess I would make a motion to adopt or propose that we adopt all of those changes.
All 9 changes?
Yes.
Okay, so motion by Luck.
Second.
A second by Severson.
Discussion.
Go ahead.
Number 8 is changing the definition of substantial gift from $100 to a different amount. What would that be?
Let me scroll to it. I wrote this a month ago. Can't remember. So let's see. In the background, under number 8, it says Richland County's current ordinance defines a substantial gift as any item, items, or service which have an estimated market value of $100 or more. The Wisconsin County's officials handbook says that the Wisconsin Elections Commission has interpreted parallel statute 19.45, saying that it would be unreasonable to expect a gift of not more than $25 to influence an individual's judgment. So under number 8, we could reduce it to 25. And that's the only guidance I could find.
$25 is pretty persuasive, I guess.
Well, when I used to work for a government agency, they said, if a contractor, you're an employee and you go out to coffee with a contractor, you shouldn't even let them buy your lunch. And that can be $5, $10, so.
I mean, I
So-
would agree with that. I don't mean, why would we be accepting any money or any kind of gift from anybody?
For my campaign.
Well, now this, and that's a good point. I mean, it's kind of funny, but this doesn't preclude us from accepting money for a campaign to run for county office, nor does it preclude the sheriff or the clerk or any of those other elected officials. That's separate, and state law spells that out, that campaigns are separate than when you're actually in office and not campaigning.
Mr. Chair, if I can just add a comment, I know like when we go to conferences or if we have current vendors and such that we're working with, they often have advertising materials. They'll hand out pens and canned cozies and thermoses and those types of things as kind of promotional advertising things. And we end up with a collection of different pens and such kind of apparels. So I'm kind of seeing if it's at a less than $25 type of a deal, that those things are still appropriate to accept.
That would allow people to take trinkets and other little, I don't know what you call those, gifts from conferences that are basically not that valuable.
Going along with what Clint was saying, this is Carrie. I know that the fair committee goes to a conference every year for the Association of Fairs, and there is hospitality rooms that have different vendors, different providers of carnivals. They offer food and kind of those same trinkets that they hand out. Is that acceptable?
Well, currently it is acceptable.
Mr.
for-
Chairman, I could not hear the comments of Mr. Severson.
Sure. So he was mentioning the fair committee. They go to a conference annually. Is it, I'm assuming, our employee and committee members? Is that right?
They are eligible to go.
Yeah. So they often, what was it? What?
It's a conference in the Dells that they have where they attend, and they are different seminars, workshops, but at that there is hospitality rooms where different carnivals, different vendors of fairs, different promoters try to get you to look at their event, their ideas, and invite them to come to your fair. But along with that, they have food and like pens and canned koozies and all that other stuff that they hand out to you.
Oh, I would think that would apply. And so you just couldn't accept more than $25 worth.
You could eat more than $25 worth of food from 3 different people. And
good examples to bring up. They're practical examples. Could look at the language of our current ordinance because that's.
Mr. Chairman, may I speak?
Of course, yes, Mr. Brewer.
I don't think you have to worry about the freebies at the hospitality hours. You just don't want to accept a free TV or a gun. The old legends of the boys at the highway meetings every winter, bringing home the TV sets and the guns and the cases of liquor. I think you know where to draw the line, folks. But I have another question, though, Mr. Chair. I thought when we were reviewing the ethics, our statement of ethics, that we were concerned about the actions of certain employees. And that would mean, yeah, they're off the clock, but still they're employees of the county. And certain things happen, for instance, during the fair that raised some eyebrows. Certain things happen, I think at one of the tractor pulls last summer, that raised some eyebrows. Can you comment on that, please?
Well, I think it would be helpful to look at those ordinances from those neighboring counties because each of those 3 counties has some disclaimer language about basically, just to boil it down, it's like people who are elected and people who are employees they have lives outside of being elected to Richland County office or being employed by Richland County. It's not reasonable to expect that they're not going to have any economic interests or any influence outside of, they can't live in a bubble, is basically what the intros to these ordinances say. Now, with that, though, there is certain language about not accepting gifts. There are state statutes about not taking votes as county board members about something where you could personally benefit from the sale of land. So there are, I don't know, without knowing the specifics of your example that you're bringing up from the fair, I'm not sure exactly how it would apply. Basically, what we're doing today is Mr. Langreich asked us to not just to ask Corporation Counsel to change something without giving him some direction about what to change with our ordinance. So the point here today is those points 1 through 9. These are potential changes that we could make to our ordinance. And if we pass this today, the Rules Committee, then Corporation Counsel would draft a new ordinance that would come back to this committee. This committee would go through that in detail, and then that would be forwarded to the county board. And then examples like you bring up from the fairgrounds, we could put that through the filter of what's our ordinance now look like that we're recommending.
Mr. Chair, may I respond?
Yeah, of course.
I think that maybe the things I'm bringing up are more better handled just by the employee handbook, I would guess. The example I'm thinking of is where one employee of the county took a swing at another member of the fair board with an iron pipe.
Oh,
Thank goodness he missed him. But we should have, I think, something governing the actions of people who work for the county when they get outside the county. No, we can't control their lives, but they ought to conduct themselves in a professional manner that represents the county.
Now, sometimes this gets into the realm of chargeable offenses. And we do have some language in our rules of the county board about county board members who are convicted of a felony. I don't know about if we get into misdemeanors and all of that. But I'm assuming that there is language in the employee handbook. I don't know it off the top of my head that would apply to the situation you're talking about, but we'd have to do some digging. But our ethics ordinance, I'm not sure if our ethics ordinance is going to cover something like that. I think this is more about being influenced to favor certain people in the community based on gifts that are given, or we'll have to look at this in a little more detail, or economic interests that any of us or any employees might have. One thing that I did want to bring up, that if we do give Corporation Counsel direction for all of these, number 5, a requirement that public officials, county employees, and or candidates for a public office be required to file a statement of economic interests. So I don't know if anyone's ever filled one of these out before. We don't have this requirement. I filled it out because I ran for assembly, and this is a state law, that if you run for state level office, you've got to fill out one of these. And there would be some additional paperwork that would have to be, there'd have to be a form created or amended, from another county to that all people would have to fill out when they ran for office. And, there's, I think yes, number 6 here, a provision directing the county clerk to omit the names of those who fail to disclose their economic interests. So, different properties you own besides your home, that could be one example of something you would have to fill out. Certain investments that anyone has made, those would have to be disclosed. And they don't, I think the language I read somewhere is it's not that these all have to be published on the website or, distributed, but they have to be made available for public review if someone requests it as an open record. So I just want to be clear that that's kind of how the process works. It probably took me 10 minutes to fill it out when I did this, but I just want to be clear that that would be if we pass all 9 of these today to have Corporation Counsel draft a new ordinance based on this, that would be one of the things.
Mr. Chair.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I've had to fill those out for being on the board of director of a couple of different entities, and they don't take very long. They're not that hard to fill out, so it doesn't seem like it would be a hugely onerous task for people to have to fill those out.
That would be for us as supervisors, that we'd have to fill that out for people wanting to run to be a supervisor, about their economic interests.
Yeah, I don't know if you could hear that, Mr. Seat, but Mr. Severson was just saying, would that be for us as county board supervisors? And the answer would be yes. And it would be for candidates as well. So whether or not you get elected during that period where you file your nomination papers, I'm not sure what the window would be, but there is a deadline with the state. I know you have to, when I did it, I had to have it filled out by June 1st before the election. I don't know what it would be like at the county level. Obviously, the dates would be different, but yes. Okay, any other questions or discussion? We got a motion and a second on this.
So, Mr. Chair,
Yep, go ahead.
just to be clear on what we're voting on, so we're voting to make these recommendations, to make these types of changes to Corporation Counsel, who, like you said, is going to then bring it back to us in some form of an ordinance. So we have multiple opportunities to tweak this and also ask more specific questions about each of these as we move through, correct?
That's correct. Yeah, it's a motion to direct Corporation Counsel to incorporate the following changes to an amendment of ordinance number 06-28. Now, if we do direct him to do these different things, you know, he might draft something. We might say, well, why did you do that? And of course, part of it might be because we directed it to. So if we do want to make changes after we see it, I don't know if we can pin it all on Corporation Counsel. We need to take some of the responsibility for what we asked him to do. Not that we can't change it though. Once we see the language, we could say, oh, we don't like it. We could yank it. That could happen too.
Discussion.
Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, I suspect that we have a lot more to discuss. It'll be quite some time before we come up with a refined product for the county. There are lots of ramifications here, I think.
Do you have any specific concerns about any of these items 1 through 9? I think this is the time to.
Well,
hesitant on any of them in particular. Let's get that out so we don't waste Corporation Counsel's time.
I think we should wait till Corporation Counsel comes back with his review before. So I'm going to pass on your question.
Okay. Okay, any other discussion on this? Anyone want to make any amendments?
Well, do we want to make the amendment to actually clarify number 8 while we?
Just a second.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, yeah, no, that's okay. Mr. Cosgrove, you want to speak in the mic and just.
Hello?
Yeah, there you go.
That was my same question.
Are we comfortable with? Well, it's going to be pretty easy to change the number, right? You know, the number's already in our ordinance. It says 100. This would take it down to 25, but then we could change it when it comes back. You know, say if we say we think 25 is too low, it could be 50. We could change it today. Don't have to wait either. Anyone wants to make a motion to amend that? Up it to 50, 40, I don't know what the right amount is, but.
I mean, I would make a motion to amend it to 50. That seems like a good compromise.
Okay, motion to amend by Luck,
Second.
second by Cosgrove. Any discussion on that motion? Okay, all those in favor of the motion to amend, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Okay. I mean, I'll support it. I heard 2 ayes. So that motion carries then. So now we have an amended motion to direct Corporation Counsel to incorporate all 9 of these into our current ordinance. Bring that back to us with that one change from 100 to 50. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor of the amended motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Okay, I'm in favor of it too, so hearing a little quietness here, but one big smile by Supervisor Severson. All right, that motion carries. So this will, but I'm sure Mr. Langreich will take this to Corporation Counsel, and then we'll wait to hear back. We'll get this back on our agenda after he's
Understood.
Look at it. Great, thank you. Agenda item number 8, Richland County branding. Mr. Glassbrenner. I should just I'm going to give just a tiny intro here. This kind of comes out of the flag discussion that we had one or 2 months. I can't remember how many discussions we had around that. And Mr. Glassbrenner is working on a branding project. He thought it could be, the flag thing could be incorporated into that. So I talked with him a little bit about how to maybe get this out of this committee's review, because we don't really, we decided we weren't going to be the committee. I think I remember some discussion, people's opinion. We're not going to be the committee that reviews a flag, and I think the branding thing is kind of the same way. So he and I worked together. I gave him some of my opinion about how I thought we could do some sort of a committee at the county level that could review his work and kind of make this actually happen. So some of this is some discussion that he and I had together. So I just want to be transparent about that. So I'll hand it off to him so he can get us up to speed here.
Yeah, so we have been provided an opportunity at both the city, county level. It's also taking place in communities like Lone Rock underneath the United States Economic Development Administration grant that was awarded to us just over a year ago, and that is being administered for the county by Southwest Wisconsin Regional Planning Commission. So underneath that grant, we've been offered an opportunity to move through a branding process in several communities. One of them would be a branding process for the county itself. So as Chairman Sean Murphy Lopez mentioned, I saw the flag consideration come up. That is a branding element. There's been a lot of discussion in your strategic planning discussions as a county as the importance of putting forth a brand. That has come up in comprehensive planning sessions for the city and Lone Rock and other villages that are out for the purpose of attracting people, maintaining a strong workforce, attracting people for the purpose of tourism and economic development. So this is a theme that is arising in many different conversations and discussions. So it started to pick up steam at the city, and the city has agreed to move forward with the branding process, employing the services of Kristen Mitchell, who is a professional branding agent. The reason Kristen Mitchell was identified is because her name was actually written into the US EDA grant that the county applied for by Southwest Regional Planning Commission. So it was someone they had familiarity with and who has done a number of very successful projects throughout our region. And so she was actually written in, and so that's why there's no bid process or anything like that at this point, because she was actually written into part of the grant. So it makes our selection process very easy. I have provided several attachments in your packet there to kind of show why we would want to consider this. And one of those was Richland County images. The last time I was here, it was kind of very spur of the moment, and I had images gathered from Richland Center. These images are gathered from Richland County,
and you can see, is that document able to be put up on the screen? Or do you guys all have it on your pads? Okay. You can see that our imaging is, has a lot of disparity in it, right? It's kind of all over the place. And County Supervisor Severson mentioned that the county was even looking at, you know, rebranding like the signage on the doors of the trucks. So I just went out and took all these different images from how we're, you know, we're kind of reflecting the county, the different places, and you can clearly see that we have a branding issue, right? There's no consistency really. So the second thing that I did is I created an outline, which you were also provided in your packets, that kind of talks about a process that could be walked through, or that I'm expecting to walk through with the professional branding agent and with the assistance of Southwest Regional Planning Commission. You know, section 1 lists the different elements of branding. We even worked down into county signage and how that's affected. The last time I was here, I think I had imagery from Lafayette County where we could see that at the borders of Lafayette County, it said "Welcome to Lafayette County" on small signs and had their logo and imaging. So there's a lot of places where your branding can show up. So part of the resolution today is to try to, you know, outline a process that you as county board members would be, you know, acceptable of, and to get it to full county board to kind of just recognize that process, and to also appoint a subcommittee that would provide guidance on the county's behalf through the process. There was a lot of information provided there. I don't want to talk too long, but I'm glad to take questions.
And I think the main thing that we were talking about offline outside of the meeting here was if we did a county committee on branding to work through this process, what could the makeup of it look like? So this is just a draft for you all to consider. And if we want to go this route of creating a committee, I just want to make sure that the makeup is that folks support the makeup of it. I was suggesting 2 county board members, 2 county department heads. We talked about MIS and highway because of the website and because of the highway trucks as potentially the best ones, but really that could be a decision for a committee on committees to make. It doesn't have to be laid out in this resolution. It could just be 2 department heads. And then 3 community members, and I think Mr. Glassburner had a few ideas on, well, I think him and I both shared a few ideas on that. So it's just a draft list for this committee to give their opinion on. And that's mainly what would be going forward to the county board, although he's written a resolution which includes quite a bit of other detail about what this process would look like.
Question, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, go ahead.
How important is the element of the county's branding pulling in the other villages in the city, their brand into the county brand as a whole? Because the county's the
seat. Right, exactly. The city's the seat of the county, right? So it's extremely important, and that's why we're here today, because the city is moving forward. They voted to move forward, and you know, recognize the importance of that exact point. You know, I wanted to get before the county and see if we could pull a collaborative effort together. So one of the elements that would happen, or that is outlined in that proposal, is that the first meeting, instead of it being the city meeting and deciding what they want to do, and then the county deciding sometime later in the future that they think it's a good idea to do the same thing, and my common term is we don't want the city branded fluorescent pink and the county branded fluorescent green. You know, it just doesn't make sense. So one of the very first meetings that would happen if the county approves of this process is that we would pull together both of the advisory committees of the county and the city, and the branding agent would have conversations with both of those committees about the importance of at least making the branding complement each other versus highly opposing each other. So it's an excellent point, and that's one of the reasons I think it's very important that the county consider this at this time.
Could it be a joint committee all the way through the entire process?
I think that would complicate issues a lot because there are a lot of different elements of like county wayfinding signs or versus city wayfinding signs. You know, the website elements are different. We got different departments on both sides. So I have thought about that, and it has been suggested, but I think that to bring that large of a group together at once and trying to gain consensus through one large committee is going to create, it's going to cost an awful lot of time and be very difficult versus allowing your branding agent who oversees both processes to say, this is the recommendation that we have, and these are the elements that you want to kind of look similar or be similar, and kind of relying on the professional advice that we get.
Do you think we should include some village representatives? Is that kind of where part of your question maybe was going? I didn't think of that myself.
Well, I guess the way Jason explained it, that the branding agent is going to be the supervisor of this, assuming the villages are doing the same thing, having committees or.
So I believe that it's been recommended by Southwest Wisconsin Regional Planning Commission that Lone Rock moved through a similar process to this. But the critical element of having kind of a collaborative effort isn't as much when you are talking about villages that are further out. And not all the villages in the county are intended to receive branding services through the grant. So I think that perhaps in your community members, that would be a place where, you know, if you wanted to expand a committee on behalf of the county and say, hey, you know, is there a rep from CAS or maybe some different townships, you could do that. And the language is very specific in here with regard to what the purpose and the role of the committee would be, because again, the last thing that we kind of want to do is turn it into a vote every single time there's a design element, and therefore you kind of cripple the creativity and the ability of the professional branding agent to work things together. So I think you could include more people on the committee, gather more input if that was your decision. Yeah, it's not a bad idea.
I'd be in favor of that also. I know at times Viola feels left out. Not all the time, but there's certain things where they think, hey, we have some economic interest up here too that the county needs to invest in with us and not just somewhere else. So.
And it worked really well on the redistricting committee to have, we had 3 municipal clerks, 1 village, 1 town, and clerks for Richland Center. Yeah, we didn't, through that committee process, we didn't get too into the weeds.
Right.
It was more guiding, than doing all the work. So yeah, I don't know if, should we replace one of these seats with a village representative? Yeah.
I'll make a motion to approve the resolution so we can discuss it and amend it.
Great. Okay. Motion by Cosgrove. Second by Severson. And that's to approve this resolution and forward it to the county board. Now any amendments to it?
I'd make a motion to amend the department heads to just be labeled 2 department heads, not in disagreement with the highway department, but leave that open for discussion for who should go.
Okay, so a motion to amend by Cosgrove to remove the names of the department heads. Second for that?
I'll second.
Second.
Okay, second by Luck. Any discussion on that motion to amend?
Should we just leave it open for any department head? Or just we're thinking this is 2 specifics just because one deals with the website and the other one has vehicles?
I think it's really, it's probably not a decision for this committee to make. It's probably a decision for committee on committees.
That's what I was saying. So then
Right.
should we just leave it up to the 2 department heads?
That's his motion. So I think what we do is we remove the language County Highway Commissioner Josh Elder and MIS Director Barb Scott, and we'd replace those with appointment 1 and appointment 2.
Yeah, I was under the impression it was Josh Elder and Barb Scott that were going to leave Highway Department and MIS up there. I get it now that you're striking both of those and just leaving it for. Could, in theory, yes.
I,
I'm sorry, did you call the question?
I did. Are you in favor of the motion?
I am, yep. Yeah, I didn't hear you say that until they said aye.
Okay, okay. Okay, so that motion did carry. I don't think anyone's opposed.
We're going to do something about adding some villages, Representative?
Yeah, how would you like to pitch that to us here?
I don't know. I've been trying to run that through my head.
where did the number 7?
Mr. Chair, what does a representative of art mean?
That was my suggestion. I just thought that someone from the arts community, I know there's the Red Door Gallery downtown, and there's different people interested in this around the county. I don't know who that would be though. I don't have anyone in mind, but again, maybe this is a little too prescriptive. Yeah, go. Can you come up to a?
Main Street program, there was a whole group of artists that worked on branding downtown, and I think they have great ideas.
Okay. That was Supervisor Gentis and Mr. Cosgrove. Go ahead.
Yeah, so back to my question, is 7 the cap that was that just a,
It's just,
yeah,
it's just in general, the larger a committee gets, the more difficult it is sometimes to gain momentum.
Yeah.
So yes, you could go to 9 easily, no problem. They prefer odd numbers.
right? So that was back to your question. On how to add a village member. We can amend the number of members on this committee.
We could also reduce the county board members to 1. It'd be 2. Or we could, you could replace one of the 3 community members with a village rep. You could add 2 village reps to the committee to make it 9. I don't have a strong opinion myself.
What about 1? So I would assume Viola and Lone Rock are our 2 biggest villages that have the most population. Casanova probably would be 3rd, and then Boaz and Yuba.
That's right, that order. Yep.
I don't know. Maybe we could get somebody from Viola and Lone Rock on there. Since I see one of those 2 becoming a city at some point in time in their tenure of life.
Okay, so you're thinking 2. Yeah.
Which villages are participating in this?
Lone Rock is participating. Like I said, I would have to double check that, but I believe Lone Rock is probably going to participate in some element of branding through the Regional Planning Commission effort.
Okay.
Maybe somebody besides Lone Rock.
Yeah.
We don't have to decide here which villages. That could be for committee on committees also, because there's going to have to be a little legwork done by someone on committees to call around.
You and I are both on that one, so.
Yep.
Thanks for that.
Actually, all 3 of them.
And Melissa.
Yeah, I think maybe everyone on this committee. That's funny. Okay. Okay, so
yeah, I would maybe move the high school student and put a village member there.
okay, so your motion to amend is to remove high school student and replace it with village representative.
Yeah.
Okay. Second for that.
A second.
Okay, second by Luck. So this would keep it at 7. It would just replace the high school student with a village rep. You have any opinion? No? Okay.
The only reason behind the high school student is that one of the messages that we consistently hear in our community is that the community doesn't factor in the youth's opinion of the direction of the county and the city. So it was just an effort to try to continue to reach down into the youth and say, hey, how can we keep you involved? So
I'm more in favor of adding 2 spots to this committee so we can keep the high school student and add 2 village reps.
I'm amenable to that.
Okay, so how do you feel, Supervisor Luck?
Yeah, I'm fine with that as well.
Okay, so maybe the way to do this would be just be to vote down the motion to amend. We'll just create a different one. So all those in favor of the motion to amend, please say aye. Those opposed say no.
No,
No,
Okay, so the motion to amend fails, and so then you want to make that?
I'll make the motion to add two committee spots for village reps.
Okay, so motion to amend by Cosgrove for adding 2 village spots.
Second.
Second by Severson. Any discussion on that? Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
I,
Opposed say no. Okay, so that motion to amend passes. So now we have motion to forward this resolution to the county board with 2 amendments. First amendment was to strike the names of the department heads. The second amendment was to increase the size of the committee from 7 to 9 and add 2 village reps. Any discussion on that? Amended the amended motion, twice amended motion. Okay, all those in favor of the amended motion, please say aye.
Aye.
I,
Say no. Okay, that passes. I think we're good.
Thank you, everyone, for your attention to the detail and for the resolution.
All right. Look forward to getting the county board's opinion too. Okay, so agenda item number 9, strategic plan, chapters 1 and 2. I have not opened the documents here. Mr. Langrick, you want to, we just did this on Tuesday with finance and personnel, so.
Sure, and the documents that you're going to see here are copy, cut, paste, essentially from finance and personnel. So looking today for possible motion to submit discussed responses and recommendations to the strategic planning committee regarding drafted chapters 1 and 2. As you would have seen in an email released from our office, I think it was last week, upon request of Richland County Strategic Planning Committee, please find and review the drafted chapters 1 and 2 of the Richland County Strategic Plan. They were included in this document as well as released to you last week. Please submit a response from your department or committee, board, commission to the following questions. After reviewing the drafted chapters, what questions do you have with the language, or which sections could use further explanation to frame context? In context of services you help provide or oversee, what concerns do you have with the drafted language? In context of the services you help provide or oversee, what recommended amendments, additions, or deletions would you offer to the chapter's content? Do keep in mind that there are additional chapters under development as folks that were tuned in to Monday. Chapter 3 is our capital infrastructure. In paragraph D, in context of services you help provide or oversee, do you see any conflicts with the drafted language and your current operations? And then please add any additional comments that you think the Strategic Planning Committee should be aware of or consider. As finance and personnel, who I thought did a nice job of it on Tuesday, they did kind of review through the chapters, and they brought out different aspects that they thought impacted their work as a committee, discussed it, and took action on several different items, Mr. Chair.
Okay, so yeah, what we did on Tuesday, finance and personnel, we went through it and we made motions to send specific comments. We did it one by one to the strategic planning committee. So I believe, let's see, we've got Supervisor Luck and Supervisor Severson. You're both on the strategic planning committee. Is that correct? Okay, but the other 3 of us are not. So I think my suggestion here would be to keep it to rules and resolutions and ethics board. Are there any changes that we think have to do with the county board rules, or one of our responsibilities is that committee structure document too?
yeah, Mr. Chair, I have something.
Yeah, go ahead.
So I was wondering if we wanted to put some kind of tactic or goal in there about evaluating the number of committees that we have and possible consolidation of committees. I know we've talked about that on and off for the last 4 years that I've been on the board. And I'm wondering if that is something that we want to make a priority mean, we may or may not make changes, but we can at least make the language something like evaluate the number of committees and potential consolidation.
Can you point to us where you're at in the document with that one?
Well, I don't
to
know
recall.
exactly where, yeah, let me get in there. I mean, I guess it could be under efficiencies, right? Hold on. I don't really have in mind a
streamline
specific spot.
We've got a suggestion here.
Oh, go ahead.
Streamline organizational structure.
Right, there you go.
So that's page 5 at the top of page 5 of chapter 2. Right. So there's 3 bullet points. So thinking about maybe adding a bullet point, is that what you're suggesting?
I'm asking if we think that's something that we want to prioritize in the next couple of years. So yeah, potentially, if we feel that's something important, we want to make a statement on.
I had written it down in my notes when I did this on Tuesday morning. I didn't bring it up finance. I wanted to wait till here. I was wondering about combining departments and committees. That's how I had written it, I think. Committee, but we really just really have purview over the committee part, since we make recommendations to the county board about that committee structure document.
We do, although obviously they're parallel conversations, right? You know, if you're combining committees, there's the potential that you would also then be attempting to combine departments, or maybe not, but you might.
You mind just well, does anyone else have an opinion first? Would you mind just taking a shot at just 5 or 6 words? Just let's write them down. Let's look at your words.
Are you talking to me?
Yeah, I am.
Okay. So you want me to make a motion, or?
Well, could you just tell us what words you would insert?
I would say evaluate our current committee structure with the possible outcome of consolidation, or something to that effect.
Continual evaluation. So it's not like we're going to evaluate one time and then reduction. Is that it's just an ongoing thing. Like, so right now we're creating a committee, like we created a committee on the administrative study committee, and we just created another one, and then there's another one for the administrator. Like, and then we don't have these meetings that are there, like continually, like look like what committees do we really need? Go, and could we combine some smaller committees in like a group of the whole? But then when we do that, then you're looking at longer meeting times. More work on it. I like the continual part of it.
Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, just a second. I'm gonna Mr. Cosgrove said something. I'm gonna have him say it into the mic so that everyone can hear it.
Sorry, I didn't hear Mr. Cosgrove. I apologize, Mr. Cosgrove.
Sorry, Don, I was whispering. I would prefer the word annually review versus continual.
Okay, so can you read what you said again, Supervisor Luck? I need to hear it again, and then in light of these 2 comments.
Well, I didn't write it down. So
I'm trying to write it down.
Okay, I believe I said evaluate the current committee structure with something about the possibility of consolidation.
Okay, so I think what I'm hearing here is, I'm going to repeat that. Evaluate the current committee structure with the possibility of consolidation. And what I'm hearing from Mr. Cosgrove would be to insert the word annually in front of evaluate.
Correct.
Okay, and then Mr. Severson, how about that word continual? Where would that fit
We're
in?
talking semantics here, so annual would be fine.
Okay, got it. So you're okay with annually. And then Mr. Seep, you wanted to say something?
Yes, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to comment. I think Melissa's statement is good. There are maybe times when, rather than consolidate a committee, you may have to separate a committee into 2 different missions or functions. And I can think of one example, and I'm sure Mr. Langrick can confirm that. So I think we need to be more open in terms of evaluation. Just evaluate the committees in terms of size or purpose.
Well, the language and I should ask too, okay, we don't have a motion. Let's go ahead and get a motion in a second on the floor, and then we, just in case this gets complicated. So it's a motion by Luck, we'll say,
Second.
and a second by Cosgrove. And the language I've got written down here is annually evaluate current committee structure with the possibility of consolidation. So then in light of Mr. Seep's comment, you know, if say we were to take two committees, I'll just take one that I don't think he's talking about. Say you took finance and personnel and say you made it into finance committee, personnel committee. Some counties do that. So this annual evaluation wouldn't preclude that from happening with this current statement, because it just says with the possibility of consolidation. It doesn't say you can't make more committees.
Or can we, for the possibility of consolidation or restructure?
Yeah, that's what I was going to suggest. Yep.
Or
That's
you could
better.
just okay. I was gonna say, what about taking out the word consolidation and just say with the possibility of restructuring?
That's
There,
good.
yeah.
Okay.
Although I do think that the only reason to keep consolidation in there is just, you know, to have on our radar that that has been something that we've really talked about seriously considering.
Okay,
So I
fair
don't know.
enough.
But I'm okay with the restructure language too.
Well, I think let's just keep it how
Yeah. My
Mr.
motion
Cosgrove said,
to amend is to add restructure.
add or restructuring. Okay, so we got a motion to amend by Cosgrove to add the words or restructuring to the end of that.
I'll second.
Second by Luck. Discussion on that. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Okay, that motion carries
Hello.
unanimously. Motion to amend. So now we have an amended motion to, and the language would be to annually evaluate current committee structure with the possibility of consolidation or restructuring. Okay, any more discussion on that? All those in favor?
Yes, I have discussion.
Go ahead.
I understood that there was a sense that the word consolidation would be dropped and just the word restructuring would be inserted. Am I wrong?
I said that. Yes, because I said that. That was my idea, but then Mr. Cosgrove made the motion to amend to just add the words or restructuring. It wasn't to eliminate the word consolidation. So we
Yes,
voted
but
to,
I thought Melissa dropped consolidation.
no, that has not been done by the committee. Is that something you would like to make a motion?
No, I'm only clarifying my own understanding.
Okay. All right. Anything else? Okay, all those in favor of that amended motion to forward this to the Strategic Planning Committee, that one comment, please say aye.
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 Opposed, say no. Okay, that motion carries. So we got one comment going forward to them. Any others? One question I have for, I think it's for whoever wrote this. I don't know who knows more about it, but there's something in here about new supervisors going to the Wisconsin Counties Association conference. Don't know what page that's on. I forgot actually to bring my notes. So I'm just going on memory here. Is that in capacity?
It's on page 7.
Okay.
It's the last bullet on the bottom of page 7. Oh, no, well, that's the training. Attending the
what's-
conference. Sorry, that might be somewhere else.
That be in chapter 1.
Let me just do a quick search on it, see if I can find the bullet here.
Oh, it's actually under tactics on the top paragraph. It's the open bullet. Fund new supervisor attendance at Wisconsin WCA Association trainings or conferences. So
Yeah.
on page 7. Yep.
Okay, so 7, top of page 7, first
Open bullet.
First,
It's the third open bullet there.
third open bullet. Okay, thank you. So do we not already do that? You
Um,
don't already fund people's attendance?
Mr. Chair, I can comment on that.
Yeah,
My understanding, I do remember that our former chair really wanted people to be able to attend that and did encourage people to attend. But I think previously, so that would have been in like 2018, 2019 before things, no, it got canceled in 2019. So anyway, I believe that years previous to that, the board had decided that they couldn't afford to send people to the Wisconsin Counties Association. And starting in 2018, the county board chair, and 2019 and our current county board chair have been encouraging people to go, but it's still, I think, been somewhat under the impression that we don't want to spend the money because it is fairly expensive registration.
I thought our county board rules said that. Now I'm looking up the county board rules to see if there's any language on that.
I don't think it's in the rules saying that we have.
I think the rules allow for us to reimburse costs or pay for costs,
Anyone know?
not specific to attend specifically counties thing, but attend workshops or to attend something in your official capacity as a supervisor, that your lodging will be reimbursed and your mileage will be reimbursed or something like that.
Does anyone know what rule that is?
Yes, I can remember. If my memory will be helpful to you, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead.
Prior to the cutting back on going to committees, there was just an open rule allowing, and I'm not sure whether it was a written rule or not, anybody who wanted to go to a conference or a workshop, was a county board member, could go and it would be reimbursed until such time as we ran into budgetary problems. Even though it was encouraged strongly by our previous chair, we had to, for budgetary reasons, cut back on the number of people going and the number of people to be reimbursed. But that was only a decision regarding the budget for that year or two. And there was no change in the rule beyond that. I don't think, maybe an amendment. But
Okay, so yeah, and while you've been talking about that, Supervisor Severson got it. It's Rule 15D, as in dog, and it says reimbursement to supervisors for registration fees, mileage, per diems, meals, and lodging for attendance at multi-day conferences or conventions held outside of the county shall be limited to 2 per calendar year, unless specific approval is granted by finance and personnel. So yeah, my question was just, the way it's written right now in the strategic plan makes it sound like we don't fund it. And we do fund it. Maybe there was a time where there were some cutbacks, but that's like saying, we had furloughs too, but that was a while ago now. So do we need to, does that language, does it just need to say encourage instead of fund or something like that?
That was what I was going to suggest. I think that the intent was that we've had very little attendance of supervisors at the Wisconsin Counties Association. And I think the intent is to encourage more supervisors to go because it is a very valuable place to gain knowledge that would be helpful to bring back to the county.
Okay, so I'll just make the motion to amend, to make a comment to the Strategic Planning Committee to eliminate the word fund and replace it with the word encourage in that third open bullet point on page 7.
I'll second that.
Okay, so motion by myself, second by Luck. And then you said something about Rule 16, Mr. Severson?
Rule 16 gets more in depth into like the policy as a reimbursement for overnight lodging, reimbursement for meals, reimbursement maybe paid for other business, it just goes on and on. So there's some more, we got guidance on how to do it. I think strategic thing is like, hey, we need to encourage attendance.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to offer an amendment for discussion with regard to this whole matter of county meetings and conferences.
Yep, go for it.
I wish that this committee would consider discussion of an amendment that would specifically require, or make it a requirement that no county board member or supervisor or staff person shall attend a conference or workshop or training session outside of the state of Wisconsin without the specific approval of the Finance and Personnel Committee and or the county board.
Okay, so that's a little off topic here, but we're just going to answer real quick. That's already in our rules in 15D, and Mr.
Not out of
Stevenson,
state conferences.
yes, I'll read the last sentence for you. I did not read the whole paragraph. Approval by the Finance and Personnel Committee is also required for any out-of-state event. That's what it says. Now, that's not, did you say employees also?
Yes.
Okay.
County
so, yeah,
supervisors are considered employees.
we're not on topic here. We'll consider that as a future agenda item. Because, well, unless, wait,
As
this
you
section
wish.
of this section of the strategic plan is about county board supervisors. And we already have a rule that addresses what you're saying just about county board supervisors. So this is a little off topic, but we could discuss this as far as a future agenda item for either this committee or Finance and Personnel. Is that okay, Mr. Seat?
As you wish.
Okay. All right. So the motion still is to change the word fund to encourage. Any further discussion on that? Any other amendments? Okay, all those in favor, you say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Okay, that motion carries. Any other comments we want to send forward? Got two. Have been approved by the committee. All right, well, I think we're ready to move on then. So thanks for the discussion on that. We'll look forward to seeing the strategic plan when it gets all these amendments from the committees and departments. Where am I now? The agenda takes us to agenda item number 10, proposed changes to committee on committees. So at the last meeting, we asked Mr. Langrek to take this to the county board, his proposed changes that he brought to this committee. He did that. Heard some comments from folks at the end of the meeting. Other people may have heard other comments in between. I asked Mr. Langrek if he could bring us a new document this time that kind of boiled it down a little more. So we've still got all the old documents in our old folder if we want to look at that. But this time he's broke it down into pieces. And Mr. Langer, can you just walk us through the pieces here?
Sure. There's a potential for a motion today to have the county administrator prepare either a proposal, multiple proposals, a resolution, and rules language changes that reflect the following committee on committees design variables, as there's many facets to it. As we discussed kind of a county board, I tried to break down the different variables to consider piece by piece. So the first aspect of your committee on committees is to evaluate the formation of it. Is it to be continued as an elected by the board type of a body, or as the proposal that was brought forward at the last meeting, appointed by the chair? Another variable to it is the number of members that you that serve on it. Currently, you have a chair, vice, and then plus 7 supervisors. To change that, the proposal was chair, vice, plus 3, but that can be a number of your choosing. The next item then was the purpose of it. Currently, we're structured where the committee on committees makes recommendations directly to the board, kind of assuming the the appointment kind of function of it for confirmation by the board. This kind of butts against some statute languages that we can kind of talk about. But again, with a check and balance type of system, I'm not sure if it's entirely out of line for a county to still say that they would like a committee input on the appointment of a chair or the appointment of a county board as a check and balance type of device. So currently, the committee on committee recommends directly to the board. Underneath the proposal, the recommendations would be made to the chair, who would then offer the appointments to the county board for confirmation. And then we kind of talk about the role as we progress into session. Currently, to fill our seats for committee on committees and boards and commissions, we assemble a committee on committee, again, to kind of formally offer the appointments to the county board. The proposal would have, once the session is in place, that it's filled by the chair or the administrator. Then we talk about which bodies. Currently, committee on committee impacts kind of all committees, boards, and commissions, the subs and the seats. With the proposed change, it would be more towards the defined standing committees. And this, of course, when kind of still comes into the discussion then of defining what our standing committees are. So it could also be a listed group of bodies. The standing committee chairs, currently they're organized by the committee organizational meetings. After the committees are sorted out and then approved by or confirmed by a follow-on county board meeting, at the first organizational meeting of those bodies, then they decide by vote by second, or by nomination by vote by second, who's going to be chair. The proposal brought forward would have the chair kind of appoint that. Another option to you is to have the committees establish that as well. So I know that Chair Murphy Lopez also provided some nice references to the county handbook, as well as some statute languages that kind of went along with it, that shows the vagueness of the statute languages, but then also the recommendations of the handbook. So I would defer to him to kind of talk through his interpretation on that. But again, I wanted to kind of break down the different pieces so that you can kind of take it in piece by piece with either further guidance to administration to develop courses of actions and then send them back out to tease and get the feel of the folks, or if we were comfortable enough to arrive at a destination today and a resolution and rule change recommendation then to the county board. Mr. Chair.
Okay, so I just want to add one piece to your walkthrough of that cover sheet that you gave us. So the only piece, so if we look at which bodies, so under his, he kind of created a chart. It doesn't have lines here, but it would be the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th row where it says which bodies. The current way we do it is all committees, boards, and commissions, subcommittees, and seats. Those are all, they're all appointed by the committee on committees, or they're recommended by the committee on committees to the county board. Well, the way the statute is written under 59.18 about administrator is that statutorily, Mr. Langreich has the authority to appoint the members of all boards and commissions where the statutes provide that such appointment shall be made by the county board or by the chairperson of the county board. So the example that came to my mind right away was the Health and Human Services Board. And I went to the state statute on Health and Human Services Board, and it says that the Health and Human Services Board is to be appointed by the county board. I think it might have been the county board chairperson. I can't remember which it was. So because we have an administrator now, it's his authority to, now we never changed our rules on this. We never reflected this yet, and we're obviously, we still need to go through some of this. Committee on committees no longer statutorily has a say on that. Now, he might ask people, but statutorily, because it's a board, he's got that authority. So I asked him to include that language when I first saw this chart, because I think we just got to remember that we did make some changes here and we haven't caught up yet. And I'm just gonna, when I sent out this agenda, I added an agenda item called roles and responsibilities of the chair and vice chair. That's agenda item number 11. I just wanted to make sure, because this whole topic about committee on committees is kind of getting into this idea of shifting more power from the committee on committees to the county board chair. So I just wanted to make sure that we had all this in front of us so that we were thinking about this, because I think that's what some people are, it's going through some of our minds, you know, how much power do we want the chair to have in this next session? And so what I did is I just pulled some language. I pulled statutory language. This is under 11, so this would be 11A. So the Wisconsin statute 59.13, that comes after 59.12, which lays out what the chair and the vice chair statutorily do. I highlighted that in green on that attachment. But 59.13 says the board may, by resolution designating the purposes and prescribing the duties thereof and manner of reporting, authorize their chairperson to appoint before June 1st in any year committees from the members of the board, and the committee so appointed shall perform the duties and report as prescribed in the resolution. And I'm not saying that, all I'm saying is that the statute says that we can do this if we want. I don't think anyone's questioning that we can or cannot do it statutorily, but I just wanted to lay that out there. And I didn't know any of this until, you know, yesterday when I was doing all this research, but I knew I better look in the handbook too. So the Counties Association handbook has a bunch of language about, you know, how committees are put together, who does the appointing. You can really do a county board chair or a committee on committee. So it's just kind of open. And I can't remember all what I read the other day, but I highlighted the stuff in green that I think is relevant to the discussion here. Like in one spot, it says generally the county board chair appoints a committee chair on page 18, right under committee assignments. Now this was written by someone at the county board. This was written by, Philip Freeberg from the UW-Madison Division of Extension Local Government Education. He's the one who wrote this. But there's something in here about committee on committees too. You know, so I don't know what other counties around us do or how they do it. I think Vernon does committee on committees, but I don't know much beyond that. So I just wanted to lay all this other stuff out there just so we have it all in front of us to reference it as we're thinking about what our opinion is as a committee. I'm just going to go ahead and share a little bit of feedback that I heard from a couple of folks too after the meeting. The feedback that I heard from a couple of county board supervisors was that this seems less democratic than the way we currently do it. So, you know, currently the board elects the committee on committees. Under the proposed changes, the chair would appoint the committee on committees. So that's the main feedback I heard from a couple people, is that it's that loss of control. I don't know if other folks heard from other people. Want to share any of that feedback you heard?
I heard similar to that. Not so democratic anymore. I question what is the purpose from changing our model the way that we do it right now? What is the purpose for changing it? Just because there's language that we can change it? Is there a reason behind that?
I don't want to put words in his mouth, but I think Mr. Langrich's reasoning was to be able to make harder decisions budget-wise.
I kind of had my decisions laid out in the summary sheet from the last committee meeting, but to kind of summarize, as we talked about in finance and personnel, we have about $1 million problem to figure out going forward into 2023. It's visual. I kind of visualized it as a means to maybe, you know, the authority word versus influence word of kind of the county board picking more of a chair that they think has the direction that is going to be then having a little bit more influence on establishing who the committee members are and who the chairs are to kind of center more in a direction on a political agenda. I think it's going to be a challenge for the board, for the county, to try to approach it in the realm of our 20 to 30 different committees on how to solve the $1 million problem versus kind of having a little bit more centralization to it and understanding kind of what a chair's platform is on, maybe not necessarily on how, specifics on what's, how we're going to fill that gap, but to have a direction on what the mechanisms are going to be and what the process is going to be for arriving at a solution. So again, that was kind of my take on it, was to try to, it would be a centralization, but it would be picking the person that's going to point a direction versus kind of getting pulled in 360 degrees. And whether or not this change arrives at that, I can't promise that. I would just seeing it as a way to potentially facilitate that.
A good leader would already do that, though, without having to have direction and pointing. A good leader would get everybody on the same page and move a group toward a similar goal without having some type of a pointing for this and that.
Mr. Chair?
Yep, go ahead.
My understanding was also that one of the arguments for making some of these changes would be that we would be able to have our standing committees formed much sooner, at least a month sooner, instead of having that delay. So that seems like a good thing, making things more efficient. That's really been one of our primary goals since we hired the administrator. And also, I do think that whether or not we do the chair appointment, I do think we do need to relinquish the appointment of boards and commissions to our county administrator as the statute states. So I do think it's important to let him do his job the way the statutes intend from that respect, but that's sort of separate from whether we let the chair appoint a committee on committees and all of that. So, I mean, I'm not actually opposed to any of these changes. I guess I'm just not that concerned about a centralization of, I mean, there's many counties that the chair appoints all the committees, all the chairs, and it seems to function well for them. So I feel like we could make it work, and I feel like we could elect a chair who's going to be reasonable and make sure that that person does take the input of the rest of the county board supervisors in how things are appointed. But anyway, that's just my thoughts.
Okay, other thoughts?
I remember back in 2020, around April or May, that I suggested that the administrator had the ability to appoint to boards and commissions, and he referred it back to committee on committees that he wasn't quite ready for that yet. So it's something that we already knew. He had the ability to, it's just that he didn't want to start that yet. I remember reading in some type of language here where the county board chair then could remove committee chair clause of some sort, correct?
And was that language in something Mr. Langrick prepared or in an attachment?
I thought something that with you and your highlighting that you were doing today.
Oh, could have been. I don't know. I read it pretty early yesterday morning. It was before the sun came up. One concern I guess I have with how the current structure is laid out, I've maybe stated this a couple times, the individuals. If you're newer on the county board, you don't have much of a chance of getting appointed to a committee or board or commission that has very much influence. You know, you're kind of put, you kind of get put in a, I don't know if it's the corner of the room, but it's like you get the little leftovers, when you're newer. And I guess I was trying to think about this, and it's not quite the way that it was laid out here, Mr. Langrick's proposal, but if you were to, say you had two people running for chair, and they laid out their slates beforehand and didn't even go to a committee on committees. And they said, hey, all you new people who are elected and you people who got reelected who are on the board, this is what I would give you if you vote for me for chair. Person one could say that, person two could say this. Well, they're going to look at those new people just as equally as they would the veteran people, because they need votes to get elected to be county board chair. So I guess when I first got on the board, you know, it did kind of seem like you couldn't get on those more powerful ones, the ones that spend more money, the ones that have more employees. So in some ways, I think I've liked the idea of this, but it is less democratic, and I don't know that I'm not sure we're quite ready for a less democratic way of doing it as a board. I'm not sure, that the board is going to swallow that. So I don't know what the solution is, but I think we got quite a few problems here with the way it works right now. I do think we need to get some of these problems sorted out.
Did find what I was referencing under committee assignments. Well, the chair removal.
Is this the handbook?
Yeah, it says
What
committee
page?
chairs and
What-
members may or may not be removed from their duties during the middle of their terms of appointment, depending on each county board's adopted rules.
Do we have any rules on removal of committee chairs or committee members?
I just think that I think there might be. There's a rule on removing the county board chair,
But not on committee chairs.
but I think that you're right. But I think the committee would have to move the chair. I'm not positive.
Yeah, I don't think we have any
Look at
rules
that.
on this, and I think we have run into problems a couple times.
I think if you don't attend certain number of meetings, you can be removed.
Yes.
Yeah,
Is that in our rules?
it is.
The number of days, the number of meetings missed, I don't think so, is it? The specific
know what?
number of meetings missed?
It is. I think
I
it's
don't
Rule
think so.
6.
No,
Yeah.
it's not specific to days. It just says well, actually, you might say if you've missed a percentage.
Rule 6?
I think it might be Rule 6. I'll go and look. In the event of a prolonged, unexcused absence of a supervisor or citizen member of a committee.
Yeah, all it says here is in the event of a prolonged absence,
Yes,
The-
and that's
the
an
chair-
ambiguous term.
the chair of that committee, board, or commission shall notify the county board chair of the absence. But it doesn't give no one has any authority, basically. No one has any authority to remove someone. I think all we have is that the committee on committees has the authority to recommend appointments to the county board. I think this is another problem we have that we've never addressed.
I think that somewhere in the statutes, the board has the authority to remove a member or a committee member.
Supervisor Seat is correct on that.
Somewhere in the statutes?
Yes.
Okay.
There is a statute that says how to remove your county board chair by 2/3 votes or whatever it is.
That's a county board chair. That's
Yeah.
not committee chairs or
No.
committee members.
Well, if you can remove a county board chair, you can sure as hell remove a committee chair.
I don't think that's in the statutes, though.
Talk to the lawyer then.
And I think what Mr. Severson just read was that county board rules may say if a committee chair or a committee member can be removed. So I think the problem we have here is our county board rules don't address it. We don't have this figured out. Okay, so I wonder if we could just go back to cover sheet for agenda item number 10 and just walk through these one by one and let's see where people are at. And who knows? We have to postpone this. We have to postpone it. We can take it back up in December, but let's just try to walk through these one by one. So under formation, currently the committee on committees is elected by the board, and the proposal is to have the committee on committees appointed by the chair. So does anyone want to be so bold as to make a motion as to one of those two, or we just want to talk about it? Okay, go ahead.
So, Mr. Chairman,
Yeah, go ahead.
if we make a motion and vote on this, is this a vote to recommend it to the county board?
No, this is a motion to have the county administrator prepare a rule change that reflects the language. That's all we're doing. It would come back to this committee, but it would be giving him
Okay.
some direction.
So eventually, who would have final authority over making this rule change?
The county board would.
Yes.
This committee would, they'll have to relook at it after he prepares the rule change. And I believe he already actually did prepare quite a few rule changes, but I think we just need to give a more clear direction about which ones we want and which ones we don't want.
Well, you know, we're voting to give the county board an opportunity to have final deliberation, consideration, and decision on it. So I'm in favor of this discussion.
Okay, so do you have an opinion about whether or not the committee on committees should be elected by the board or appointed by the chair?
My personal opinion is that there needs to be more discussion. I'm not ready to make my decision one way or the other. I'm inclined to be against it,
Okay.
but I'm subject to changing my mind.
Okay. Other folks on this one.
Mr. Chair.
Yep, go ahead.
I'm okay with it being appointed by the chair. I do think, though, that it does, the part of the discussion you brought up is I think it would become very important for anyone running for the position of chair or vice chair need to present a written statement of what their goals and what their platform might be, so that we can make a very well-informed choice of who we choose for chair. So my agreement to that would be on that stipulation that anyone running for chair or vice chair would have to, in writing, say what their plan is, so that I would know who I support.
Okay. Okay, any other opinions? Would you want to know, Supervisor Luck, who the chair was planning to appoint to the committee on committees?
No, I would just want to know where they stand and what they believe in and what, how they see our path forward, so that I would know, who I want to support. So no, I actually think that would be bad, because then it's sort of like you'd be buying my vote. I think that would be a bad thing.
Okay. We're at 1-1 right now. Mr. Brewer, I think you're still on the line. I wonder if you have an opinion, since you're our current county board chair.
Well, I enjoy this discussion, and I'm torn on this issue because I like the democratic process. I like, I guess I like being able to share the blame if we go down the wrong quarter. But by the same token, I can see that speeding up the process and being more politic in the selection of the committee on committees, and then going forward from that, the selection of actual committees and the chairman of those committees. There's a lot to be gained by that process. So it's not totally foreign if you look at the way the people in Washington do it. That's probably a poor example, but that's the way they do things. So maybe it's not so undemocratic.
Okay.
Washington usually doesn't do stuff the way that they should either.
Mr. Chair.
Yeah, go ahead.
So all of these things, no matter what we do, at the end of the day, the board has to approve, right? It all gets, even no matter how we get the names on these lists, and no matter how any of these positions are filled, at the end of the day, it still has to be approved by the board. Is that correct?
That's correct. That's my understanding of it.
So to me, it doesn't seem undemocratic, because at the end of the day, they can make all the recommendations they want, and for better or worse, it can blow up at the board and things and changes can be made and amendments can be made. So I don't think this is undemocratic. I just think it speeds up the way we get to the list. So that, and then, you know, if we had to, we can make changes at that point.
I would just kind of caution, I don't think I've got Attorney Wendell on here, but in the realm of doing appointments and confirmations, I don't think it would be like an appropriate for a county board action to substitute and change names out of those because they don't have the power to actually do the appointment. They're just confirming it. So it would be you could say that you don't want Tommy and you don't confirm the appointment, but I don't think the county board would have the authority then to take the next step of saying we'd rather have Samantha than Tommy, because you'd still need somebody to make the appointment as the chair or the administrator or committee on committees as we currently go.
So,
But whether or not it happens, I'm sorry to interrupt, but whether or not it happens at the county board meeting that night, or if it happens at the next meeting, it would have to happen. If the county board refused to confirm whatever appointments, then it would have to come back, and then the county board would have to confirm it there. And I see he's nodding his head, so, okay.
right, that was, yes.
Mr. Chair, who was speaking there? Was that Mr. Wendell?
That was Mr. Langrick. He was speaking.
Oh, Mr. Langford, yes.
Yep. Go ahead, Mr. Severson.
So in Rule 6 of the board, it says the chair shall, after receiving the advice of the committee on committees, appoint all committees subject to confirmation by the board by motion. I think the whole process is to avoid what we see at our state capitol, where Governor Evers has appointed people to certain things and the Senate and our assembly have not approved those appointments. So now they're just hanging out there as designees. And I think by having this committee on committees and the chair sitting in there is that he's getting 5 different people saying, hey, I agree that this person should be the one. So we're not up here on the county board floor saying whether we're going to confirm them or not. I think that's how it goes. I don't think the committee on committees appoints them because it says in our rules of the board that they're still taking advice from committees on committees, but it then eliminates that hassle. Are you putting somebody in there that somebody doesn't like?
Yeah, I think, you know, I'm getting the gist of what you're saying, and this reminds me, if we go through the election process by the whole county board for the committee on committees, you sometimes get a more diverse set of opinions at the committee on committees. Because if it's just the county board chair appointing the committee on committees, you know, they could just pick their favorites and it might further divide people. So yeah, I think a smart county board chair would probably pick people from differing viewpoints for their committee on committees if it was an appointment process. But someone, well, who could be equally as smart, I guess, just maybe a little less kind, you know, maybe they could just pick their favorites and just get those opinions, you know. So you can rule in different ways. You know, you can rule in a divisive way, or you can rule in a way that kind of brings different people together.
Yes. And a good leader then will get everybody going, having diverse, on the same page.
I mean, I guess Supervisor Luck, in my mind, I would want to know who the chair was going to appoint to the committee on committees before I voted for them for chair. I would want to know, which type of leader are you going to be? Are you going to be a leader that's going to grab from people of different political viewpoints and different lengths of service on the county board? Or are you going to just pick who I know to be your closest allies? No, that's what I would want to know beforehand. So maybe in a way that it's influencing my vote. I wouldn't say buying my vote. It's influencing, because then I'm trying to understand who this person is and do I think they'd be a good leader for the county board.
Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, Mr. C.
I hear what you're saying, but it's a smack of lining up people on various sides of an issue. and it could be potentially divisive. I think we hired an administrator to manage the budget, manage the employees, manage the infrastructure and the systems for providing for the infrastructure, both the human infrastructure and the physical infrastructure. I do not think we hired an administrator to manage the board or how the board is organized, except to the extent that it can be helpful to him in doing his job. But that must be the board's decision. And I think it's dangerous to consolidate power among a very small minority of people. I think it's conducive to divisiveness, and I certainly agree that it's not very democratic. We have to trust people, no matter how much we like them or dislike them. We have to trust them as citizens, to make decisions. If they make the decisions wrong, we can debate those decisions, and we can have a vote about it. We're taking away a significant element of representative government by changing this approach. And I know Mr. Langrick may not appreciate my remarks, but we didn't hire Mr. Langrick to manage the board or to consolidate power. And this is not intended as a criticism. I know that if I were administrator, I certainly would like to have more control than I had in the past. Sometimes I had to always account to a board, and I sometimes very much resented the fact that it didn't have the power that I needed to have. But this is government, and it's democratic government with a small d. If the people are not happy with the way the county is being run, they eventually must have a say. And through their representatives, they must have a say. And I don't think it's fair to take away some of that say. We have $1 million problem that would like to be solved. That's why we hired an administrator. And that's why we have department heads who are responsible for managing their budgets. And it's the administrator's job to exercise his authority over those department heads and their budgets to ensure that we solve that $1 million problem. We need to give him the authority to do that. And if he doesn't have it, he should ask for it more clearly. Can you hear me?
No, we've been able to hear you, so I think we were all listening to what you were saying.
That's all I have to say. And I have the greatest respect for our administrator's talent, his ability, his integrity. But I think this is a bridge too far.
No, and I guess my take on this proposal is I think our administrator, he's been here for almost 2 years now, and I know I see several problems with how our system currently works. I don't know that this is the right solution to the way our problems are laid out, but I appreciate that he would bring all this up with us and get us to talk about it. I know it's difficult.
Well, that's the job of an administrator. A good administrator will do that and give us decisions that we need to make.
Mr. Chair, if I
Which is what
can
he's doing.
speak,
Yep,
I'm
absolutely.
not,
We've been talking about you. Go ahead.
yeah, I just want to assure that I'm not emotionally hinged on this, where this needs to be a change that I'm adamantly saying has to go through. Again, it's brought forward as a way of seeing to facilitate, because as we've talked about a couple times, the financial challenges going forward are going to incur divisiveness. I don't know how we're going to reach a 2023 budget without having some very divisive conversations. Does it need to change like this? It does not. I think it's going to put more in the wheelhouse of administration on shaping what the direction is going to be, and that's all fine and good. I guess my concern is when we reach a decision point by the county board, it's got to be a decision that's going to be very challenging, and to ensure that through a process that we have a direction by elected folks versus just the administrator marching us in what direction that staff and department heads feels is best. I'm not saying that that's going to happen, but that would be my fear and concern, is that we take adamant steps of putting together a long-term financial type of plans, and short-term impacts, which are going to be impacts to services, which are going to be impacts to the community and the constituents that you serve. So while I certainly have a lot of very, very smart people that are working for myself and elected officials that I'm working with, we're going to arrive at a plan. It's just ensuring that you folks have that balance of feeling that there is enough elected decision making and enough elected direction put into the equation versus being to the other extreme of it just being administratively pushed. So if the balance doesn't arrive from an action like this, we'll have to meet it in some other means, and that certainly can be the case as well.
Mr. Chair?
Yeah, go ahead, Supervisor Luck.
I just want to comment that Administrator Langrick has brought cuts and some difficult things to us, and we've always kind of wimped out and taken the easy way out. So I would argue that he's been trying to do this and we keep sort of blowing it up. So, I can understand his wanting to have a committee that's willing to make these tough choices and then stand behind it and not try to take some sort of easier way out, utilizing the general fund or other options that we've used in the last couple of years to balance our budget.
Yep, and then Mr. Severson.
I think, in my opinion, the purpose of county government is to offer services that are not less affordable or fundable by other people, by private entities. And we offer those services, and we start taking away from some services and adding to next services. I think that
A little closer to your mic.
I think that it'll do more harm than good. So I understand that the administrators brought up some budget cuts and stuff, but those are for us to make as supervisors. So granted, maybe we have wimped out on that, but there's some greater good with the services that we provide that, it costs a lot. And I mentioned this the other day in our strategic planning, where we cut a whole bunch of services over there at Health and Human Services back in 2017, and it did not turn out good for us. And we ended up paying dearly for that. But a lot of those over there aren't mandated either. But then we start taking away funding for parks, and we don't have parks. Well, now that's not going to be attractive to people that we want to move into our community, because now we need to have more community members for our tax base. We talk about taking land away and building houses on it, but now we have a possibility of needing more land to build on. So then do we go with paying for more land, or do we do eminent domain? So I think by having, our infrastructure, we have buildings, needs, grounds, property, and they all take money, but those are services that we offer that if we were a business, I'd say we need to get rid of them, but we offer services to our people, our health and safety of our citizens.
And tie this back to the discussion, because
I think this is what the administrator's wanting us to talk about, is that, hey, if we have some strategic points of, like, our county board chair then appoints to different committees to keep us pointed in the direction, because we have possible $1 million deficit in the future, and would be direct us, because Melissa alluded to that he's offered cuts, but we've never did it. We've always wimped out on that. I think this is one way to get us to where maybe we would be able to support those cuts that way. But on the flip side, this is what we do as a government, is we offer these services, health and well-being of our community. I get it. Get what needs to be done. It's just hard.
well, and really, it's the county board's decision
In the
about
end,
whether to make cuts or increase revenues. I mean, the administrator's job is to bring forward a budget to us.
right.
But in the end, it's our decision to vote it up or down or to make amendments. And he offered us a really good process this year for doing that through finance and personnel. So sometimes, like, I kind of get where you're coming from, Mr. Langreck, about like, okay, so you want a clear direction from the county board, and if you have this way of doing it, maybe that will help it happen more. But then sometimes I'm not quite sure if this will actually get us to that point or not. Kind of going back to Supervisor Luck's point about wanting that resume from county board chair, their statement of goals. In my mind, that's one of the biggest things, I think, is that's going to set our direction forward. If we actually see what someone wants to do and they lay it out and we elect them, that's going to give them more power to actually carry that out. So whether or not it's through this way or another way of getting people on committees and appointed chairs of different committees, I think actually that other thing might help a little bit more.
The other thing is that we're a creature of the state legislature, so we're bound by what the state legislature gives us and tells us what we can do through administrative authority and state statutes. And so where the real dime and the real dollar comes down to is these unfunded mandates that the state legislature needs to get away from, especially with smaller counties like us. And that's where I think our focus needs to be on, is lobbying with them, people in the state legislature. We didn't have to spend 1.4 million and other stuff. Well, that 1.4 million now is just made up after we were court ordered to. We have to do what we have to do because we're a creature of the state legislature, and they want us to take our tax dollars to pay for that.
Well, it's been good discussion. It's almost noon. I'm about ready to stop the meeting. So I wonder if there are any next steps that we could do that would kind of help us pick this back up. I mean, I think I've got a couple ideas, a few comments I've heard about different specific things we could bring back to take care of a few issues we know are out there. I don't think we're ready to take votes on, all of these different things yet. I prefer to think about it and chew on it a little bit more myself. But one thing I've been thinking about is, should we be doing some research about other counties around us to see how they pick their committee on committees and how that process works, and bring that back to the committee so we can learn a little more, because I don't know much.
So I just want to add, it's just a comment in general. So I attended a workshop on my own for snowmobiling, and it was on the 22nd in the Dells. And so there was a group of us from different counties. It was, myself and Sauk County and Rock County, and there's another county. We were just talking about grooming of snowmobile trails, and everybody's got their own opinion on how to groom the snowmobile trails to make them the best trails ever. But in the end of that conversation at night, late, we come up to the conclusion. Our conclusion was, we just do what's best for your county, what works for you. And you just got to groom how best it works for you. So I think, other counties may be doing it, but what works best for Richland County? And granted, I think we could change on a lot of things, but then we also need to look at, hey, this is still working for us.
So maybe not do the research. Is it helpful to hear the other?
It is helpful to hear the research, because
okay.
We just need to keep taking into consideration that we're our own. We just don't need to copy other people, but work off of other people.
I'm not saying that. I'm not saying we should copy, but
Mr. Chair,
yeah, go ahead.
I do think it's helpful to know how other counties do it, and not because we absolutely are going to copy what they're doing, but just to know what options are out there, because maybe there's some that are doing things like some sort of compromise between the two, the way we are now and the way that Administrator Langrick has proposed. So we may find a way forward that addresses some of the issues that people are concerned about with making the change. So I'd be willing to help with that. I'm assuming you're going to do some of the research, and I would be willing to help with some of that too as well.
Great. And is anyone opposed to doing the research? I just want to make sure that we're not heading in the wrong direction. Anyone can do research on their own and bring it, I suppose, but I think for this topic, it's pretty important that we all be kind of on the same page about that. It's good to start calling up other counties and asking how they do this, you know. Was anyone opposed to doing research on how different county boards appoint and remove and do all that sort of stuff for committees, commissions, and boards?
I think that knowledge is very important.
Okay. Okay, so I'm not hearing any opposition, so I think we'll just move forward with that. I don't think we're ready to take action on this today. Anyone disagreeing with me on that? Okay, then let's move on to agenda item number 12, future agenda items. Mr. Seep, do you have any besides that one you already mentioned?
Not at this time. I may have something to bring to you in adequate time before the next meeting, however.
Okay, I'll stay tuned. Mr. Severson? Okay, Mr. Cosgrove? We were questioning some rules. Which ones were we questioning? The ones under which discussion item?
Talked about, I think how to remove a chairperson.
Oh, yes.
Committees and.
That one. Okay. Got it. Okay. Thank you. Supervisor Luck?
Yeah, I think it's important that we talk about recording of our meetings. And I just want to share what I learned at the Wisconsin Counties Association.
I totally forgot about that. You brought that up last month.
Yep. And then I also think, completely separate from the changes that Administrator Lankirk is bringing forward, I do think that maybe we perhaps want to pursue a requirement that anyone running for chair or vice chair submit a platform, bio plan, however you want to phrase it. But so I think that's worth discussion on its own merits.
Okay, thank you.
I concur with that.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, we got future. Let's not, not get into discussing them, but any others, additional items? Okay, that takes us to adjournment. Looking for a motion to adjourn to the first Thursday in December. I don't know what that is. We'd be adjourning to December 9th. Oh, no, couldn't be. It have to be the first Thursday.
December 2nd.
Okay, so looking for a motion to adjourn to Thursday, December 2nd at 10 a.m.
So moved.
Motion by Luck,
Second.
second by Severson. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 All right, we're adjourned. Thanks for the great
Thank you, everyone.
discussion.